everyone, and welcome to our caregiver panel discussion tonight. My name is Cherie Mahaffey with Skypass Foundation, and I hope all of you guys are having a great Tuesday today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. As you guys know, we typically do an Ask the Doctor webinar every month, but with November being National Caregivers Month, we thought we would do something specifically for our care partner community and host a panel discussion to address the unique needs and concerns of the care partner community in Parkinson's. And joining me tonight is our panel, Mike Swanson. Mike cares for his wife, Linda, who was diagnosed with PD in 2007. We also have with us Pat Goukler. Pat cares for her husband, Barry, who was diagnosed in 2002. And also joining us tonight is Cherie Mahaffey. Cherie cares for her husband, Graham, who was diagnosed in 2009. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Dr. Shilpa Chitnis. As you guys know, Dr. Chitnis serves on the board of directors at Skypass Foundation. She is also a movement disorder specialist at UT Southwestern, and she will be moderating tonight's discussion. This webinar is being recorded, so we have quite a few folks that will be watching us after the fact. But if you're joining us live on Zoom, please interact with us throughout the conversation tonight. We want to keep this as engaging and as interactive as possible. There's a chat box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to utilize that as much as you want to throughout the discussion to share with us your comments, your insights, perhaps something that you can relate to, a piece of advice or an experience. If you have questions specifically for the panel, kindly put those in the QA box. The chat box sometimes can get really chatty, which we love, but it can be hard to keep up with some of the questions. So if you have questions that you want the panel specifically to address, please put those in the QA box and we will try to incorporate those into our discussion tonight. And we also have the questions that you submitted with registration. So thank you for that. And we will be addressing those as well. And with that, Shilpa, let's jump right in.
Thank you, Cherie. And really want to raise a toast. It's only water, but I want to raise a toast for Pat, Mike, and Cherie. I know these folks personally as well, and they are amazing, and their spouses are amazing. And I will say that I'm a movement disorder specialist, and that includes taking care of not just Parkinson's, but so many other disorders. But I have never been as inspired as I've been by Parkinson's, and it truly is because of the patients and their extremely amazing family members. So thank you for everything that you guys do. And so I'll walk through really. So who first noticed, and we can go through Pat, Mike, and Cherie in that order. Who first noticed the initial symptoms in your spouse, and what were those initial symptoms? Start with Pat.
I was the first to notice. Barry stopped swinging his arm, and in fact, he was carrying it crosswise across his body when he was walking. And I mentioned it to him many, many times, and he didn't realize it. He would say, "I am swinging my arm. You know, I don't know what your problem is. I'm swinging my arm." And until he saw himself in a mirror in a department store, that's when he realized that I was onto something. He wasn't swinging his arm.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, yeah, Linda noticed it first. She noticed her feet shuffling, and she had the sensation that if she stepped in water on the sidewalk or something, she would slip and fall. And we were actually preparing for her third marathon, for the Chicago Marathon. And we had gone out on 2 Sundays prior to the run and run 24 miles, and she did fine. Her feet were sore, but she did okay. And then I was actually up in Cincinnati, and she called me and said, "Something's wrong. My feet just aren't moving like they should be moving." And my thought was, well, just take a couple of days off running, you're going to be fine. Well, here we are 10 years later, and that didn't work. She's still going through it, but she noticed that, and then later on, a little bit later on, started having a little bit of trouble swallowing, and then started seeing other doctors after that, and was diagnosed fairly soon.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and over to Cherie.
So I believe that Graham and I both noticed it around the same time, and it was so slight at the time. He had just a tiny little bit of a tremor in his right pinky finger. Didn't happen all the time. And we didn't really do anything about it until he went for his normal checkup with his internist. And he mentioned it to him at that time.
Okay, very good. And so did you guys did you see a general neurologist first, or did you see a movement specialist, Pat?
Actually, it was our internist who first said, Barry, I think you have Parkinson's. And he referred us to a general neurologist with whom we met. He did a very brief visit with us and told Barry, yes, he thought it was Parkinson's and wanted to put him on carbidopa-levodopa. And Barry said, I don't believe I have Parkinson's, and decided to see someone else. And it just turned out that the second neurologist he saw just happened to be a movement disorder neurologist.
Okay, very well. Mike?
Yeah, at first, Linda had seen her regular physician and then went through some physical therapy. And the physical therapist suggested she go see a neurologist who happened to be just a general neurologist. And then a little while later is when we got involved, learned the difference between that and a movement disorder specialist, and made a change then at that point.
Okay, thank you. Cherie?
Like I said before, he went to his regular internist, and out of an abundance of caution, he said, I don't think it's anything, but I'll send you to a neurologist. We were extremely lucky at the time. He went to just a general neurologist who ran an MRI on his brain and really didn't see anything. And just as he was leaving, we were lucky enough that he said, you know what, I want to send you to this person at UT Southwest who is a movement disorder, just in case. And like I said, we were so lucky that we got to a movement disorder specialist so early in the diagnosis. And literally on our first visit, he was diagnosed as Parkinson's. And we were pretty much gobsmacked because, you know, at the time, we did not even know what Parkinson's was.
I understand. And, you know, this is a spontaneous question that arises in my mind, guys, is my biggest worry when I am seeing patients is if the patient is by themselves, and it is so hard for me to deliver a diagnosis when the person is by themselves. So were you guys, to all three of you, were you guys together, or was Pat or Linda or Graham alone by themselves? And what was, I really would like to understand, the manner in which the diagnosis was delivered, because this is, so critical in which you, deliver a diagnosis. So let's start with Pat.
Yeah,
I was with Barry when he saw the first neurologist. And as I said, it was a pretty brief visit. And of course, I knew nothing about Parkinson's. So I was expecting blood work and all kinds of scans and things. And he was just pretty straightforward and said, it sounds like you have Parkinson's. Yeah, so with that, we went on to a second doctor who was a movement disorder specialist. And I have gone with Barry for every visit. I go and take notes, and we go in with notes, and then I'm writing down the physician's responses and making sure that all of our questions get addressed, and we have something in writing to document it.
Wonderful. And Mike?
yeah, we Linda went to the appointment where she was diagnosed. She was actually by herself. This particular doctor saw new patients on Saturday, and I had something that pulled me away from going to the appointment with her. And she was only there for maybe 15 minutes, and he said, "You got Parkinson's."
Yeah.
Just point blank. That was it. And so, like I said, it was on a Saturday. I got home later on that day, and it was just, I guess the best way to put it, was just a surprise. But we had not expected that. We knew she was having trouble with her feet and her legs, but a lot of runners have those kind of issues. But this one caught us by surprise, would be, I think, the best way to put it.
And so did Mike, if I can follow up with that, what was Linda's reaction, and did she call you right away?
She's sitting here, she waited till I got home that afternoon. I can't even remember what it was that brought me away, kept me away from it. But we just didn't, at that point, we weren't that concerned about it. It wasn't that big of a deal. She was going to a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like Pat. Since that point, I don't think I've missed one. I think I've attended all of them. So, and which is the way, hopefully the caregivers are able to do it.
Yep. And Cherie, thank you.
Yes, I did accompany Graham to his first movement disorder appointment with Dr. Chitnis. And so I was with him when the news was delivered, and we were pretty much in shock. Did not know what Parkinson's was, didn't know what to expect. And I have to say that our first visit, even though we were in shock, Dr. Chitnis put us at ease. And the biggest thing that we did thereafter not only was to be together at every appointment and, like Pat said, and taking notes, but educating ourselves together about what the future held. And I've been with him every time since.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, so important. I mean, when you're married to somebody, it's a partnership. And so it's really for better or for worse, isn't it? So that's really great that, you guys take the time. I think I kind of asked this question, but again, if you haven't said, maybe your first reactions, or did you accept the diagnosis, or did you feel like, we really need to get a second opinion? So Pat?
No, I don't think, no, we didn't, neither of us accepted the diagnosis. Although when the movement disorder specialist said, yes, Barry, I'm pretty sure this is Parkinson's, we felt that, okay, maybe it is, but we didn't know anything about Parkinson's. So we were both confused. As far as we were concerned, Parkinson's was something that very elderly people might develop. And so how could Barry at 55 have Parkinson's? And so he actually made yet another appointment. We were in California at the time, and we were very close to the Parkinson'S Institute in Sunnyvale. And so Barry made an appointment, and we both went in and met with a doctor there. And he said, yeah, this is what it's going to be, Barry. And he talked to him about staying active and, getting as much exercise in as he could. And from that point on, we just decided that we were going to learn as much as we possibly could and work as a team to learn what this was and how to live with it and how to go forward.
And make sure you ask your doctor about a physical therapist appointment before going skiing.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And, Mike, thank you, Pat.
Yeah, we did the question thing, just thinking to accept the diagnosis. I think we accepted it. I think it did catch us off guard. We were thinking, okay, we're both healthy. We've had a few health issues in the past, but overall, we're both in pretty good shape. But so I don't think it was denial. Surprise, as I said earlier, we just didn't expect it. And we went to 3 doctors to get their opinion. Not that we were looking for one that said it's not Parkinson's. We just wanted to make sure we understood more about it. And Linda did a lot of this and stomping her feet for meeting the 3 doctors. But overall, that's how we accepted it. Just by learning, as Pat said, I think just a minute ago, learned as much as they possibly could. So that was our goal, to learn as much as we could. And then also, we held a call with the kids just to make them aware of the situation. And they had a lot of questions. And I told them where I had gotten our information from, which websites to go to, which were the best ones. But they kind of took it the same way. They were caught off guard by it. The number one question was, okay, is this something you're going to pass on to us? So it was interesting to see the process as we went through it.
The good point you raise, Mike. Some of my patients are very young children, and the things that they notice are, if somebody has a tremor, definitely that's something that the kids pick up, and they want to know what the parents have. And I highly encourage, at least I know for myself, I've had some young kids come into the office, and we've sat and answered their questions and tried to kind of put them at ease. So again, I mean, it's up to the couple to decide at what point the kids should know. When you have adult children, it's a lot easier than when you have younger children. And over to you, Cherie, to answer the same question.
We did not get a second opinion. We were, like I said, we were surprised and shocked with the diagnosis. And we've just continued to educate ourselves, tried to educate our family as much as they can. They're out of the country. And when Graham was diagnosed, if you met him, you would never think he had Parkinson's. It was so slight at the beginning of this that we really didn't feel necessary. I don't think he was even comfortable telling some of his work colleagues and some of our friends, even if they were not close friends, that he had Parkinson's. So but we worked together, like I said, educating ourselves, being more comfortable with his diagnosis as everything progresses, and doing the best we can day to day.
Yeah, thank you. And Janet Hakami raises a very important point that I think anytime we are faced with anything that's a surprise and somewhat life-altering, we go through these 5 stages of grief, I guess. So my question to you guys is, what did you do? What kind of coping mechanisms did you use to get yourself, but also your spouse, to come to terms with the diagnosis and the the changes that may occur in your life because of that? Pat?
Well, after Barry had seen 3 neurologists, he decided, okay, I have Parkinson's. Now what do I do about it? And how do I live the best life possible? And we both spent a lot of time researching online, taking copious notes into the neurologist visits to get as much information as we could. We found the online sites like the Michael J. Fox Foundation and the Parkinson Foundation to be extremely informative. One of the first things Barry did was to get Michael J. Fox's book, Lucky Man. And he read that several times. And after he read that, he felt so much better about the possibility of living a good life with a progressive degenerative disease. And we were very fortunate and have been very fortunate that Barry's progression was extremely slow. until about, I guess, about 5 years ago. And that may be a question that you have coming up, but that's when you talked to him about considering deep brain stimulation. And I probably should stop there and wait until you ask further questions.
Yes, and Mike, coping mechanisms that you and Linda used to come to terms with it?
Yeah, I think what we did a lot of the same thing. There's some continuity here, certainly without a doubt. But we tried to learn as much as we could about Parkinson's. One thing we did learn fairly soon was that with DAPS, with the Voice Project, with the Davis Finney Foundation, all the things that we had access to, and UT Southwestern, Dallas wasn't a bad place to have Parkinson's if you're
Right.
going to have, so we tried to get connected with as many of the folks as we could, tried to watch as many people that progressed and some that were just coming in. And I think one thing that I learned, it's good and at the same time it's cruel a little bit. But one of the best things to do is to be around other people with Parkinson's. But when you do that, you're going to be around folks that are having trouble, and it shows you where you're headed. But we spent as much time as we could. Linda got very involved initially, and just watched others and other, not just the other Parkinson's patients, but also other caregivers. I needed to learn from them. So there are some good ones around there that know what they're doing, that I've learned a lot from. And as far as coping mechanisms, I think here the sense of humor's got to stay in there somehow. And I think with this group it does. But it's very critical that you keep it a little bit light in some way.
Thank you, Mike. And over to Cherie.
So as far as coping mechanisms for myself and for Graham, I think that early on, I was more interested in getting involved in support groups and learning more about Parkinson's than he was. I think that he was a little bit in denial from the perspective of, I just have a little tremor. I don't need to be involved in support groups right now. And I had gotten into Michael J. Fox's book. He didn't want to read it. So I think even getting involved in some of the support groups that we did, he would go a little bit reluctantly and say, I'm not there yet. From the perspective of, as you said, Mike, seeing other people progress, I think it scared him. But it was the best thing that we did as a couple, and getting involved with other Parkinson's patients. And I've heard some people say, that Parkinson's doesn't take away your sense of humor, because the Parkinson's patients that we've seen and been involved with, when they interact with each other and they have a camaraderie, that's what's formed, who has formed now, and in his acceptance of it. As far as coping mechanisms for myself, early on, I was still working at a very stressful job. He had not progressed, so I didn't take him kicking and screaming, but I had to pull him along and getting involved in the organizations. And he formed friendships and saw the value in that, finally, without too much trouble.
Thank you. And I have to say that, yes, I agree that the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is definitely a great place to be if you have Parkinson's, because everything's available. There is not a single service that is not available. We have really everything for the care of patients. So moving on, like Cherie said, I guess some of you have been, all of you were working. So, suddenly you have work stress, but then you have this new diagnosis. And so did you really worry, like how stressful? I mean, it sounds like a stupid question. Obviously, it's stressful, but how stressful? And did you worry about how this was going to change the dynamic of your relationship? And did the dynamic of your relationship really change at that time? Or did it take time until you really took on like a care partner role that the dynamic changed? Or maybe it didn't change. So let's start with you, Pat. Muted.
Our dynamic did not change for many, many years. I was just working along with him. We were learning together, participating in as many groups as we could get involved with to learn more and learn from other people. And because the only symptom he had at that time was he wasn't swinging his arm. So, and he was still working. He was doing international sales. He was traveling a lot. I was working part-time because we had just relocated to Texas. I'm sorry, we were still in California at the time. We had relocated to a new area in California. And so I was working part-time. So that made it much easier for me to be able to take off, to go to doctor's appointments with him and so forth. But it did not change the dynamic. If anything, it probably, we had been married, I think 35 years at that point. And if it's possible for something to draw you closer together after that many years, I would say that this did draw us closer, even closer together.
That's really wonderful to know. And Mike?
Yeah, I think a lot of the same direction, I guess. Linda could function very well for the first several years, as y'all know. She did well. She did quit running the marathon, but she did start doing running and walking the half marathon. Stayed very active, and like I said, did that for several years. And the way I like to say it, and it came from one of our caregivers at one of the meetings we were in. She said she was a care monitor at that point because he was still just getting started in Parkinson's, and I thought that was a good way to put it. And that's what I was for many years. I just monitored things. I just kind of stood back and watched and see how things were going. And then some things changed that made it a little more difficult. I think the biggest one was that drew us together was when Linda gave up driving. I didn't realize how big of a change that was going to be. But once she gave up driving, that meant I went everywhere. Wherever she needed to go, then that's where I had to go with her. So and it worked out fine. It just took a little while to adjust to it.
Okay, thank you. And Cherie?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The question was, was there a change in your, personal dynamic in the relationship? Yes. Or so how long did it take for that to happen, if it did?
Not originally. As Pat and Mike have both said, it was early diagnosis, early on, not very many symptoms. So I think that's a wonderful word, care monitor, because that's exactly what I did for years and years and years. And it was as Parkinson's progressed, I assumed more and more of the care and responsibilities. However, at the beginning, we're both working and all of that. About the past 6 or 7 years, as I've noticed different things that he did not notice he was unable to do in taking over his meds and things like that, because I noticed that he was off at times and I didn't understand why. So I went back and took, looked at his meds. They were too complicated for him at that time. So it was a progression, just like the disease is. It's needless to say, a lot more difficult now than it was at the beginning. But I have to say, I agree with Mike, you just have to keep your sense of humor. And the most important thing is the ability to talk to your partner about it and communicate about every single thing.
Thank you. I'm going to just pick a question from one of the guests, Sienna Saxon. How do you handle when you see problems rising that your spouse with PD isn't seeing and doesn't see, won't believe that it's really, this is involved with Parkinson's? Pat? Unmute.
Sorry. I have learned going through this over the years that there is, it's been explained to me as a mind-body disconnect. So Barry not swinging his arm and not knowing that was a mind-body disconnect. And we have had several instances where the way he's walking, maybe a foot flaring out or carrying his arm behind his back in what Dr. Salinas told me is called chicken foot hand. Not realizing that he's doing that, or maybe puckering his lips constantly. And I usually will just, I'll tell him that I'm noticing this. Explain to him exactly what it is that I'm seeing, get confirmation that he's not aware of it, and then try to get him into a situation where he can see it for himself. So have him walk past a mirror or hold a mirror up for him, to say, this is what I'm seeing. And fortunately, once he sees it for himself, then he's okay. He accepts, okay, this is a new with progression, a new symptom, and we'll now talk to our neurologist and see what we can do about it.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, overall, we've been fairly fortunate that we haven't had much of an issue at this point. Now, the one thing that we do have occasionally is Linda will lean pretty drastically to her left. If she's sitting, well, in fact, it took place at lunch today when we stopped on the way home, and she was leaning. And even sometimes when she's standing, we see the same thing. So, but other than that, she realizes what she can do, what she can't do. Occasionally her legs will get out of whack with the walker and she can't hand maneuver the walker like she'd like to, but she does realize it. She doesn't deny it. She understands what she's doing and then tries to correct it.
Okay, good. And Cherie?
It was definitely a learning curve and learning experience in learning that they don't realize what they're doing. Like Pat said, the body-mind disconnect. If he was leaning forward walking, or if he was making movements with his mouth, or if he was doing some of these things he didn't realize he was doing. It was helpful to us, for other people, to be around other people with Parkinson's who we could actually talk to about it and acknowledge, if it's coming from someone other than a caretaker, sometimes it's more accepted or accepted more readily. So that was helpful to us.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Has being a care partner changed you? Because, it's not just a change in your dynamic or change in your person, but how about you, Pat? has it changed you?
It's an ongoing process for me. I'm having to learn to be much more patient than I've been previously. And I tend to be somewhat OCD. And so I'm, having to learn that, if things don't get done today, that's okay. We can do it tomorrow or the next day or next week. So I think that's the biggest change for me is just trying to slow down and realize that this is the most important thing for us right now. And we need to deal with this on a daily basis, and everything else becomes secondary for me.
Patience. And Mike?
Patience.
Yeah, I agree with Pat. Patience is my number one, I guess. A lot goes on outside the Parkinson's world that continues to affect us, that we've got to deal with it somehow. So we got to get through it. Parkinson's naturally going to be number one on the list most of the time in our house, but we still got to take care of all the other issues with the children, the grandchildren, and everything else going on in our world. So we try to work on that. And I'm not too successful at it all the time. I'm the first to admit it. But Linda does the same thing. She tries as well to be patient. She's better at it than I am. I give her credit for that. So.
Mike, I don't know what you're talking about. You have the patience of Job or beyond. I've known you for.
I agree.
If you had seen me sitting at this keyboard, sometimes you wouldn't say that.
And Cherie, how has it changed you?
Definitely changed me as a person. Like I said, when he was diagnosed, I was in a very stressful, high-powered job that I stayed in until about 5 years ago. So I had a very busy career. What it has taught me, not only from the perspective of having to have patience, is realizing that this is not Graham, it is Parkinson's. It is not Graham that is leaving all the cabinets open, that is forgetting that, the grocery, the garbage made it halfway out the door, and all of this, and what was amazing to me and so helpful is all of the caregivers communicating and being able to talk about things like this, because I was like, what do you mean that's Parkinson's? What do you mean that this man that used to be the most logical and project-minded and all of the above is now, his mind doesn't go from A, B, C, D anymore. That Parkinson's has robbed him of that. And I remind myself, it's Parkinson's, it's not him. I have to be patient. And I will say that another thing that I tell myself daily is being thankful for the progression that he's had, because it has been a journey, and it's been a longer journey than I thought it would be. And I think we have a long way to go, but being thankful for each day, stepping back and say, what's the most important thing? And I know, especially people who are younger, who are still working, who have children and all of this, I can't even imagine how difficult that is. But I would say, try to keep a sense of humor, talk about it. I can say things to him now and he laughs we both laugh about it. And laughter is a great stress reliever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally understand. Angela Robb has a question. What's your number one tool, if there is a number one tool, or maybe number 2, 3, 4 tools for coping with caregiver stress? I mean, I'm pretty sure with with the disease advancing and more issues coming up, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you coping with the stress? Pat?
Well, I think if I may be the oddball in this response, but because we're involved in so many activities, we do Parkinson's exercise classes twice a week. We do Dance for Parkinson's classes online twice a week. We go out and take long walks together. And I find great relief, great stress relief in doing those things with Barry. Some people may need to have a total escape from the person they're caring for, but I get great relief just doing with him, and he's still able to do these things independently. So I think that makes a huge difference. If I were having to push him around in a wheelchair or something of that nature, then I probably would need to find other outlets. I do, however, go twice a month to for chiropractic care, and I get an hour massage twice a month, which really is wonderful. Great way to relieve stress. And just we do laugh a lot. Some people might think we're kind of sickos because we do tend to laugh a lot about the Parkinson's, and it's so much better than getting frustrated and getting angry because he can't do something that he used to be able to do. We just kind of shrug it off and laugh about it. So we play board games, we do the crossword together. And so I just find I personally find a lot of stress relief in doing those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
And would you rephrase the question?
So the question was, what's your number one coping strategy, or what are some of your coping strategies with the caregiver stress?
Yeah, I think mine is just trying to stay a little active, doing something. Things have changed. I mean, it's not the same world it was for Linda and I a year ago. Things have changed a lot recently. But I just try it, and running is the one thing I enjoy doing, and help me with weight, help me stay in better shape. And it's something that the one thing about it, it's something that she thoroughly enjoyed as well, but not able to do it anymore. So, but I think that's my number one, just trying to stay active. And when I see some of the other thing, I know we do spend time with Pat and Barry, and you see all the things they're involved in. It's just amazing to me. But it helps greatly for me as well.
Yeah, and Cherie?
Like I said, coming from a very stressful job and trying to slow down and take over the role as caregiver, I enjoy doing things with Graham, but find it necessary for my sanity, my meditation and my yoga that I do to start the day, to get my head in the right place. And as a result of COVID and us being locked down together for so long, what I found I needed after that was an outside interest. I am involved in a couple of nonprofits. I didn't get involved as much during COVID. It's something that we're both passionate about, and we can do together. But I think finding the simple things that we enjoy doing together, that while we were locked down and couldn't travel, taking walks, enjoying our swimming pool, things like that. But I definitely need my time and space away.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, this is not related to our caregiver panel, but you mentioned swimming. And I do want to warn people that, you know, people, especially with deep brain stimulators, you have to be very careful with swimming. Really, I would not ask anybody to swim unless there is a person there that's literally watching you. You know, there is some data that somehow swimming, you know, being in water can affect some of the motor pathways, and people are not able to move their arms as well. So be very, very careful. I mean, I would probably choose, you know, other exercises, but if swimming is your thing and you really enjoy, I wouldn't go in a swimming pool unless there is a person there that actually knows how to swim. You know, not just a person, but a person who, you know, knows how to swim. So David has a very interesting, you know, point. And you guys, again, you know, you guys are exemplary care partners, and but not everybody is like you. There are people that, you know, are confused and scared, and you know, also as much as, like we say, for better or for worse, but people worry about, well, what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my life now, like, you know, my life's kind of falling apart now that, you know, I have to deal with this person that is going to have some issues. How are you, you guys are an inspiration, but what active steps have you taken to help other patients and their spouses or their care partners to be able to be better care partners? When you know, when you see that in the community that somebody is not helpful or not being able to be helpful, have you gone out of your way to try to educate them?
I don't know that I would say I consciously go out of my way to try and educate someone, but for the last 7 years, I was the facilitator for the DAPS Parkinson's programs here in McKinney. And I think just by anytime we would get a new person in with a caregiver, I always made it a point to talk to the caregiver and see if that person was having any particular concerns or issues. And then I offer them a reference sheet that I had put together of great websites to go to, good organizations in the area, and give them my phone number and say, if you just need to talk to somebody, call me, because I'm a good listener. I may not have the answer to the question that you have, but I might be able to refer you to someone who does. And at the very minimum, I'm a good listener. And sometimes just having someone to vent to is so very, very helpful. And we all participate at the Parkinson Voice Project. And while Linda and Graham and Barry would be, when we've had in-person sessions before COVID, while they would be in the loud crowd group, we would have kind of a little care partner group sitting in the kitchen at the Voice Project and just be there to support each other, just listen and offer advice or guidance if we thought it was appropriate. But many times it's just listening and letting someone get it off their chest and let them know that there is life with Parkinson's, and it can be good quality of life. You need to get to the right doctor, get into the right exercise and physical therapy programs, the right medications, and you can continue on and have a very good life.
Thank you, Pat. Mike?
Yeah, I think Pat said it well, and she and Barry are probably two of the most active people in helping others that I've been around, certainly without a doubt. I'm not going to say I'm very good at helping others in some respect. If a lot of our involvement is through the Voice Project now, and if there's somebody that needs some help, somebody new, we'll certainly try and help guide them. Guide them to reference material, talk to them about the various doctors who they might take a look at and so on. So it's Linda is much better in that area than I am. A lot of times in that respect, I've kind of just made sure she was there or got her to talk to somebody that I may have talked to a few minutes ahead of that. So she has more difficulty now than she's had in the past, certainly. But she still tries to help whenever she gets the opportunity.
She has been a great help to many, many, many people.
Yes, absolutely. I emphasize that as well. Linda, when she could, has really helped a lot of people. And Cherie?
I definitely have my antenna up at any time I see someone with Parkinson's, even outside of a group. Graham and I have both noticed people on the outside that have Parkinson's and ended up sitting down and have a conversation with them and introducing them to the Voice Project and, you know, just have a discussion with them about, you know, what are you doing and are you seeing a movement disorder doctor? I sorely miss my time at that kitchen table at PVP because I think that caregiver group that that we had at PVP actually was so helpful in not only hearing each other, but sharing ideas, sharing expectations, what's coming next possibly, or just so many things. There hasn't really been a caregiver group that I've been a part of since that time. And I kept saying, you know, during COVID, we're going to get a Zoom meeting going and everything. And we all know how that goes. Unless you have someone that's just jumps in, it's really, really hard to get that organized. And Pat is the, you know, quintessential guru of everything Parkinson's, every organization, every exercise class. Her reference list is amazing. And I know that the position that she served with DEPS for a long time was phenomenal. But I do believe that, you know, if it wasn't for other caregivers talking to other caregivers, it would be much more difficult journey for us, as well as, you know, as well as the patients, because if we're having a good day, they're going to have a better day.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I have a couple of questions. You know, I've tried to cover as many questions even from the audience. I do want to ask this important question, that what steps did you guys put into place starting to think about, you know, retirement plans, you know, disability paperwork, long-term care for your partners? Because, you know, these are things, I guess we start thinking about them in our 50s and you know, suddenly you're forced to think about them more so, especially disability and also plans for retirement. I mean, you know, everybody has this, I'm going to save so much money, and suddenly you're faced with a condition and you may not be able to work for those many years. So did you guys put some things into place that can help other people?
Well, Barry was diagnosed at 55 and actually retired at 63 because he just felt that he wasn't putting his whole into the job that he had. But because he had, the company he had worked for full time no longer existed. And so he went out on his own and had been self-employed for quite a few years before he was diagnosed. So we had already started, we had all along been planning for retirement through 401ks and IRAs at work. And so we were pretty well positioned at that point. We were fortunate for that to be the case. And our son was grown and married and starting his own family at the time Barry was diagnosed. As far as long-term care, Barry did not have it, and now with Parkinson's, you cannot get it. I asked an insurance company, tell me what I would have to pay to get this insurance. And they sent me a sheet of paper with about 30 conditions on it for which they would not provide long-term care insurance, and Parkinson's was one. But again, we're very, very fortunate that because Barry was in the Navy, had exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam, the Navy has, or the VA has now added Parkinson's disease to the list of diseases that they attribute to Agent Orange. So he gets full care now and can be eligible for long-term care through the VA, which is a huge, huge relief for us. I would encourage anyone who is younger to consider purchasing long-term care insurance. I was able to get it through one of my employers, and so we feel good about that. But I think that's something really critical that people should stop and think about purchasing long-term care insurance. And I think I'll stop there. If I think of anything else, I'll raise my hand.
Yeah, Mike, if you have any comments.
Yeah, we've gone through some changes recently. In fact, our daughter initiated some of it when she said, "Okay, Dad, if you get run over the ball while you're out running, what do we do? Where's the best place for Mom to go?" So we're going out now and identifying those locations. Okay, we got these 3 selected. Whatever you think would be the best, y'all take a pick. And I think one thing, if we were doing this, as I said, there are other things going on in the world around the Parkinson's. And I had an older brother that had a stroke, had colon cancer, and went through a lot of issues. And toward the end of his life, we were looking for a assisted living facility for him to stay at. So me and my sisters picked out about a dozen of them. We went out and looked at them and narrowed it down to 2. And then we took him out and let him pick between the 2. And the reason he picked the one he did was because there was a community dog there, and he liked dogs. And the cable stations that they got would allow him to watch all the St. Louis Cardinals baseball. The 2 most important things to him, and we never even thought about asking him about those things. And that's the one he picked, and we never even considered it. So we got to, as we're moving forward with the situation with Linda, okay, what would be the best thing for her? What will she enjoy the most? What does she need to do? So that's what we're kind of looking at now.
Yeah. And Cherie, thank you, Mike.
I'll say it's difficult when they're first diagnosed. That's not something you want to think about. So it did not happen then. It was an evolution, and it was not until he had been probably 8 or 9 years down the road was he ready to have those kind of conversations even. Like Pat said, our financial person told us to get long-term care for him, and I missed the boat on it, and it was too late. And I would highly recommend that, because now it's we can't get it. I mean, it would be so expensive. But it's conversations you don't want to have, but you need to have. We put our wills in place. And as far as retirement, it kind of found us because similar thing happened with Graham's job when he was about 62 years old. And he had to leave the company. He went to work for a friend of his as a consultant, did the best he could as long as he could. And we both made a decision that for him to retire, I would continue working, and which is what we did. So I would say that, being a little bit off subject, I worked to fund our travel addiction because it was something we enjoyed so much and something that he was still able to do. So I think what I would share from that perspective is do what you can while you can, and don't put it off. There were, we have a family in England. There are times that, it was difficult financially, but we needed to do what he could do while he could do it. So I would, I'll just leave it there.
Yes, and we're coming close to the end of time. So rather than asking guys, this is a question, I'm going to summarize a few things. Of course, we know the disease is progressive, and we are well aware of the stages of the disease. And my hope always is for my patients, most people end up passing something else, which actually is kind of for just as much for me as it is for them. But I do have, patients with stage 4 going into stage 5. And I want people to be aware that you need to start talking about palliative care, not hospice. The minute I say palliative care, everybody jumps like, it's end of life. It's not. Palliative care is a very good way of identifying what the needs are of somebody that has chronic disease, especially in the advanced stages. As a physician, I always try to identify, I have my radar on as to which patient needs to start thinking about palliative care. And I think that, I want the community to be aware that if your physician has not mentioned it, I think you should ask them about it. You can place a consult. So that's one thing, so that, even in the advanced stage of the disease, they can have the best quality of life that they can have. So my goal for all my patients is to have the best quality of life at every stage in the disease. You will not be running a marathon after you've had disease for 15 years, but could you not aspirate? Could you not have your bowels entangled because of constipation? Could you not fall? Could you not, pass out because your low blood pressure was not managed? Could your anxiety and depression not be managed? So there are so many things that can be done, pardon me, that will be very helpful at every stage of the disease. And really for care partners, it's important to be aware of this. And my last word is, yes, you are care partners, but if you can afford, or if you can ask friends or family to help you, please utilize that help. I think Parkinson's is better dealt with a sense of community. Don't hide. As Mike said, yes, you will see some people that may be worse off. Don't imagine that that's going to be you, because every person with Parkinson's disease is different and every patient's progression is different. I really think that this is one disease where being with people, being with like-minded people, being with, care partners of other people is very important. And, I have learned a lot over the years, but I've even learned a lot even on today's forum. And I was telling Shelley, on an individual message, what more we need to do to educate the community, to be able to provide the support for care partners and for the patients. And I will say honestly that as a physician, having been given only 60 minutes for a new patient visit and 30 minutes for a follow-up visit, it is very difficult for me to cover everything that I need to. And so for every visit, like, write your questions, like, here are my 3 things, let's answer that. And then if there is time, we can talk about, something else, and we can go on forever and ever. But I promise to do more chilling with Chitnis questions where, people can bring just their random questions. So it doesn't have to be, care partner question or speech question or constipation question. It can be anything. And I think, with that, I really want to thank, Pat and Mike and, Cherie, you guys are an inspiration, not just for the community, but I think for me as well. And I thank you for everything that you do. Thanks to care partners everywhere for what they do. And I'll have Cherie have the last word.
Yes, I agree with everything Shilpa said. Thank you, Pat, Mike, and Cherie. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experiences with us. And thank you to all of you that joined tonight. All of you are an inspiration. And the conversation that we had going during this webinar was incredible. So much great interaction on the chat, our private chat, the public chat. It was just blowing up. And I'm just so happy to see everyone sharing their experiences and exchanging tips and advice. There are some resources that were shared on the chat. So what I'm going to do is send an email to everyone that's on this, that is registered. I know some of you have registered and aren't here live. You're watching this after the fact on YouTube. So I will be sending out an email with a list of some resources, including some things from the Parkinson'S Foundation, the Davis Phinney Foundation, and some information on support groups, specifically for care partners, as well as exercise groups. We didn't get a chance to cover all of that today, so I'll send that out in an email so that you guys have that. And if there's anything that you guys need, as Shilpa said, we have some great things coming up in 2022, and we want to make sure that we are catering to areas of need. So please let us know how we can help you. Let us know what your needs are in the person with PD community, as well as the care partner community. info@skypassfoundation.org. I've put that in the chat. That's the best way to reach me. Let us know what you guys need so that we can ensure that we cater some programs for you guys in 2022. And with that, we will wrap it up. Thank you again, everyone. Thanks to our panel.
you.
Thank you again, Shilpa.
Cherie, enjoy your trip.
Have a good night, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Safe travels, Cherie.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.